Hello friends, we're back, and this is it. This is the final episode of our Real Rome series. But before we get all sentimental, let me drop a fun fact. So, Rome is roughly divided into three main parts. First, the Renaissance and Baroque part, featuring iconic piazzas, fountains, and buildings. Second is the Trastevere, literally meaning beyond the Tiber, and it's filled with charming villas and Renaissance palaces. The ancient part, where you'll find the Colosseum, Roman Forum, and this is where we pick up our story. Today, we're doing what Romans do best. That is, walk downhill, uphill, and back again, all while discovering some of the most underrated landmarks, mind-blowing churches, and photo spots that scream Italy 2025. Now if you're getting déjà vu, don't worry, because this is where we ended part 4 of this series, The Real Rome. And this is also where we pick up, for the final leg of this amazing series. Behind me, well, that's the Capitoline Museums, and next to it. Here, you'll find the Lupa Capitolina, the she-wolf who raised Romulus and Remus. On our left there is a charming little church, the Church of Saints Lucca and Martina Martyrs. And honestly, if churches were introverts, this one would be it. Because it's quiet, shy, but absolutely historic. And just beyond that is the Arch of Septimius Severus. And this arch has been standing since 203 AD, celebrating Roman military wins, and surviving tourists with selfie sticks. Then there's the Temple of Harmony, which is exactly what I was trying to manifest when my husband told me we were walking the entire forum again. But quick heads up. We won't go into all the details about these landmarks today, as we have actually covered most of them in last week's episode. If you missed it, just click the pop-up above or check the link in the description. And trust me, it's worth a watch, because we had a full-on historical deep dive, and I may have tripped over a stone or two, for your entertainment, of course. Today, we're taking a more relaxed stroll through this ancient wonderland. So, just soak it in and let the ruins do the talking. Rome doesn't rush, and neither should we. Can you imagine what this view must have looked like 2,000 years ago? Senators in togas, chariots rolling through, maybe a few emperors throwing shade at each other across the forum, politely, of course. Now I know what you're thinking. Haven't we already walked through half of ancient Rome by now? Yes, we have. And guess what? Well, we're doing it again. But I promise, this stretch has something a little different. Now follow me through this slightly quieter, cobbled path. And I am bringing you to the Basilica di Santa Francesca Romana. So at first glance, Basilica di Santa Francesca Romana might not scream Instagram showstopper, but don't let this quiet beauty fool you. The facade is super understated, classic Baroque with a clean white marble finish. Located in the Roman Forum, near the Temple of Venus and Rome and originally built in the 9th century, but the current Baroque look is from the 17th century. Then you walk in and it's like crossing into another dimension. And the interior is light, peaceful, and filled with soft golden tones and marble floors, cozy columns, and a ceiling that looks like it belongs in a painting. There's a beautiful nave with side chapels tucked neatly along the walls, and at the front is an absolutely glowing high altar that feels equal parts sacred and Instagrammable, if that's even possible. Don't miss the 12th century mosaic of the Madonna and Child tucked up in the apse, quietly watching over the space. And for the best part, we need to head down the stairs behind the altar, and this is the crypt. Here, you'll find the tomb of Santa Francesca Romana herself, surrounded by relics and silence. It's peaceful and a little eerie in the best way. And definitely, one of those places that feels like it has stories buried in the walls. She's the patron saint of drivers, by the way. So if you've ever tried to rent a car in Rome, you'll want to light a candle here. Oh, and pro tip. This church isn't usually packed, so, if you want a breather from the Colosseum crowds and a moment of serenity, this is the spot. Plus, you'll sound like a total Rome insider when you casually mention Santa Francesca Romana as the patron saint of drivers. Alright, so we've wrapped up our stroll through the Roman Forum. And yes, I did say we wouldn't go into details again, but let's be honest. Walking through this place never gets old. Now we're gently heading towards the Colosseum. The Colosseum is always crowded. And finding that perfect Instagram spot without 100 selfie sticks in the background is literally impossible. Or is it? Well, pro tip again. Don't stop right in front of the Colosseum, instead, look for the little train station entrance on the side, it's called Colosseo Metro. Right next to it, there's a stone staircase that leads up to a terrace. And trust me, you want to climb it. Next, near the metro station there is a handy pedestrian bridge. It's not just functional, it's scenic too. The bridge gives you this great elevated view of the Colosseum fading behind you, and you start seeing the quieter side of the city ahead. As we cross the bridge, the vibe shifts. Now it's fewer crowds, more locals, little cars navigating tiny cobbled lanes. We're stepping into Monte district territory, one of Rome's oldest and coolest districts. Okay, so at first glance, this church might not be on everyone's Rome bucket list. I mean, there are no souvenir stalls, no gelato truck parked outside, and no gladiator dudes in sandals charging €20 for a photo. But this is one of the coolest surprises in this entire series. We've arrived at the Basilica of Saints Silvestro and Martino a Monti, and I know that name's a mouthful. This basilica is tucked away on Via del Monte Oppio, and it's one of those places that feels like you've stepped into a hidden chapter of Rome. Inside, it's peaceful, with cool air, faint incense, and the sound of footsteps echoing through centuries of history. The interior is pure serenity. It's elegant but understated, and think ancient columns, soft lighting, and gorgeous side chapels. There's this beautiful altar with golden accents, and the kind of silence that makes you instinctively whisper even if you're the only one inside. Underneath this basilica is another church. I know, right? It's like Inception, but with incense. We head down these stone steps carefully, as they're ancient and a little uneven, and soon we're standing in a 4th century underground chapel. Down here, you'll see ancient columns, fragments of frescoes, and early Christian altars. And it's raw, humble, and so different from the glitter of places like St. Peter's. It's quiet, almost like time's frozen. And for my history lovers, this lower level was once part of Pope Silvestro I's house church, way back in the early 300s. And yes, that makes this place one of the oldest Christian worship sites in the entire city. Honestly, it felt like we just traveled through time. Like, we were archaeologists, minus the dirt and sunburn. Coming back up felt like leaving a secret world behind. Outside, well, Rome's still buzzing with scooters flying past, dogs in jackets, and that faint smell of espresso. Now, if you thought we'd seen all of Rome's grand churches by now, well, hold your horses because we're about to step inside one of Rome's largest papal basilicas, and it is the Santa Maria Maggiore. And spoiler alert, this place isn't just massive in size, it's got an incredible story to tell, too. If you think this is just another church, think again. Because this is one of the 4 major papal basilicas, and that's saying something in a city that has more churches than I have shoes. Alright, before we step inside this magnificent basilica, let's take a moment to appreciate the exterior, because, trust me, it's just as impressive as what's inside. First off, Santa Maria Maggiore sits proudly atop one of the 7 hills of Rome, the Esquiline Hill. What makes this basilica so iconic is its huge, striking bell tower, which towers over the surrounding area. And this is one of the tallest bell towers in Rome and adds a very distinctive Roman silhouette to the skyline. As you move closer to the entrance, you'll see the grand portico that leads to the front doors. And it's lined with massive pillars, and the central doors, made of bronze, are adorned with beautiful reliefs of biblical scenes. You know, when you walk into Santa Maria Maggiore, it's like walking into a world of awe, history, and divine beauty. And seriously, this is one of those places where your jaw might drop without you even realizing it. The first thing you'll notice is just how huge it feels inside. The nave stretches out in front of you, with its high arches soaring up to the ceiling. And speaking of the ceiling, it's absolutely breathtaking. This is one of the most famous gold ceilings in Rome, and it's original gold. So yes, that gold was brought here by Pope Nicholas IV in the 13th century, and it still glows just as brilliantly today. You might have heard the word basilica thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? Basilica is a special title that the Pope gives to churches of major importance. Now, I bet you're wondering, what's the difference between a basilica, a church, and a duomo? So, well, let me break it down for you. A church is any place of worship, from your local chapel to these massive historical ones. Duomo is just the Italian word for cathedral, which is the principal church of a city or diocese. But a basilica is special. It's like the VIP club of churches, because it's a title given to churches with historical, spiritual, or architectural significance. However, not all basilicas are just churches, and not all churches are basilicas. And here, see this quiet staircase just off to the side? If you follow it down, you'll reach the crypt of the Nativity, or as the locals call it, Cappella della Sacra Culla. That gorgeous white statue, that's Pope Pius IX, kneeling in prayer, carved in marble. It's one of those unexpectedly emotional places. And people often come here to pray, light candles, or just sit in silent reflection. Right beneath the altar, inside that silver and gold reliquary, there is an ornate urn, with the tiny angel resting on top like he's had a long day saving souls. And that's the Sacra Coula, or Holy Crib. According to tradition, it holds fragments of the original manger. Yes, the same manger where baby Jesus was laid in Bethlehem. Sure, everyone stares up at the golden ceiling and the grand nave, and yes, they're jaw-dropping, but there are hidden gems, tucked in the corners of Santa Maria Maggiore, that feel like little whispers from history. Behind the main altar, for example, there is a tiny side chapel, barely lit, with a faded fresco and a simple bench. And down this side corridor, there's the Chapel of the Blessed Sacrament, and it has this gorgeous dome that isn't visible from the main nave. Now over to the left transept, a spiral staircase leads up to the Lodge of Blessings, but it's usually closed to the public. You're gonna love this, because there is a tiny door, and seriously, if you blink and you'll miss it. It leads into the Sistine Chapel, but not the one in the Vatican. This one was commissioned by Pope Sixtus V. He wanted his own slice of heaven here, and he got it. And finally, tucked near the entrance, the Tomb of Bernini, is just a modest slab on the floor. And you'll probably walk over it without realizing you just stepped on the final resting place of the man who gave Rome so much of its Baroque drama. If you ever visit this basilica, try to discover these hidden corners that I just mentioned, by yourself, on your own. Okay, deep breath. We step out of the hushed halls of Santa Maria Maggiore and Rome hits us again with her street symphony. We stroll down Via Cavour, just a short walk to Roma Termini, and while it's more of a modern transport hub than a historic gem, it's also where people from all over the world begin their Roman holiday, or end it. It's one of the largest stations in Europe, handling nearly 150 million passengers a year. That's more than the entire population of Italy itself. It's like a tiny city on its own. And you'll hear every language spoken here, and maybe even find the best espresso in town if you venture to the local bar tucked in the far corner near track 1. Just outside Roma Termini, literally steps away, you'll see a modern-looking, larger-than-life bronze sculpture. That's the statue of Pope John Paul II, standing about 5 meters tall. This statue caused a bit of a stir when it was unveiled in 2011. Some people thought he looked more like an astronaut in a bathrobe than a pope. And here we are, Piazza della Repubblica, the final stop on this 5-part roller coaster through the real Rome. This piazza is like Rome's dramatic exhale, grand, theatrical, and slightly chaotic in the best way possible. And it's built on the ancient site of the baths of Diocletian. So yeah, even this traffic circle has history buried beneath it. We can't leave Rome without visiting the outlets and doing some shopping. And now is also the perfect time for a lovely wrap-up. So what have we learned on this epic Roman deep dive? Rome is layered. You're never just standing on pavement, you're standing on 2,000 years of civilization. Embrace the chaos as between scooters, ruins, and day tours, this city thrives in beautiful disorder. Slow down as the magic isn't just in the Colosseum or Vatican, but it's in the back alley cafes and in the corner shrines. Don't overplan because some of our best moments were completely unplanned. And we are here for dinner, a dinner well earned, because my feet are crying and my camera battery is hanging by a thread. If you stuck with us through all 5 episodes, first of all, grazie mille. And you're part of this journey now. Next week, we're taking a quick breather, with something lighter. But after that, well, we're back on the road. New country, new stories. Same wanderlust. Thank you and see you soon.